probably my biggest lesson of resourcefulness was in 2010 when I decided to move to the south of Brazil. And here in the States, okay, if you're watching this, probably in North America, in the US or Canada, I hate to break it to you, we live a life of abundance. We live literally like silver spoons in our mouths compared to the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And certainly compared to the dawn of time, if you will. And living in Brazil, there's this saying. The saying is the jeitinho brasileiro, which means the Brazilian way. And really, what that means is there's always a way to figure out if you have a lack of resources to get resourceful to figure out a way. Because when you live in the third world, like Brazil or the vast majority of countries on the planet, you don't have all these resources at disposal. And I think the takeaway from an entrepreneur perspective is if you can apply that mindset of resourcefulness, like literally, you are unstoppable.
Welcome to the Fitness CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to helping fitness entrepreneurs launch and grow successful gyms. Here's your host, Bryce Henson.
The one thing I did hit on the resiliency and the other side of the coin, which I want your take on this as well, but would be the resourcefulness aspect. And I think that's so mission critical as an entrepreneur, because at the end of the day, there are going to be times where you might lack the traditional resources, but if you're going to be successful in life, if you're going to be successful in business, you can't use that as an excuse. You have to literally take a step back and be like, okay, how can I get resourceful and figure this out? And I'm really dying to hear your take on this, B. And the reason this is probably my biggest lesson of resourcefulness was in 2010 when I decided to move to the south of Brazil. And here in the States, okay, if you're watching this, probably in North America, in the US or Canada, I hate to break it to you, we live a life of abundance. We live literally like silver spoons in our mouths compared to the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And certainly compared to the dawn of time, if you will. And living in Brazil, there's this saying. The saying is the jeitinho brasileiro, which means the Brazilian way. And really, what that means is there's always a way to figure out if you have a lack of resources to get resourceful to figure out a way. Because when you live in the third world, like Brazil or the vast majority of countries on the planet, you don't have all these resources at disposal. And I think the takeaway from an entrepreneur perspective is if you can apply that mindset of resourcefulness, like literally, you are unstoppable.
Yeah. To that point, having come from a third world country, let's talk about that,
which is
right?
I want your take.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, again, we tend to forget, as you said, when we live in North America and any of the North American, like Canada, US, and hell, Europe, right? If you are in a first world country, you don't think about the level of resourcefulness people have to go through to get the two most simplest things they need, food and water. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Oxygen is there. You just breathe it. So you're not going to have to fight for that. But people don't have Uber Eats or Grubhub in most places, like in third world countries, which is where the majority of the human population live. Mm-hmm. Yet they're somehow managing to get clean water. They're somehow managing to get food. So imagine what they have to do. And we've all seen the pictures and videos on National Geographic where, the woman has her baby strapped to her chest and she's got a bucket over her head. She's walking 5 miles to a pump, a well, to get that water, and then walking 5 miles with 3 gallons of water on her head with a baby attached to her bosom. And that is how most of the world lives. And that is a sign of resourcefulness. Now imagine if she said, well, I'm thirsty, but there is no bottle of water, there is no running faucet, there is no filtered refrigerated water, so I'm just going to have to shrivel up and die. We would have like mass deaths across the world. But the reality is, and this is proof that humans do have the ability to be resourceful.
Oh yeah, we rise to the occasion if presented.
Mm-hmm. And this is why I love the mindset of always act like your back is against the wall. Right? And when you always kind of act like your back is against the wall, the way we operate here at Fit Body Bootcamp headquarters, like no pandemic, no economic crash, no competition could stop us from our growth trajectory, because we always operate as though it's winter, as Tony Robbins says. We always operate as though someone somewhere has a marker board, and on the top of that marker board it says, how do I put Fit Body Bootcamp out of business? In my head, I'm always operating that way. In your head, I know you're operating that way. And as the leaders of this brand, If we're operating that way, so are the rest of our teams up there in our headquarters. And so how can we not find the resources in the absence of resources, right? How can we not be resourceful? Which is why we made it through the pandemic. We didn't have to sell for pennies on the dollar. I mean, most people don't realize this. You can do a Google search and see that many big brand gyms sold massive amounts of equity for pennies on the dollar during the pandemic to private equity, to private capital, because they needed the financial funding. Like, we figured out a way by getting resourceful. And so the human condition is we have the ability to get there. It is a trait that is absolutely like mandatory if you want to be successful as an entrepreneur. And so I guess one might ask, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, well, how does one build resourcefulness in life? Like, what would you say?
The best way is to put yourself in very uncomfortable decisions and do hard things. Keep the promises to yourself. Mm-hmm. And interesting is it's the mindset. When you talked about, a guy like you or I, like waking up being like, all right, someone's coming to take our territory, not a chance in hell. And one of the things that I do on a daily basis, I do my polar plunge in the morning. I get my workout in. I'm done working out by 5:15, and the water, even though we live in Southern California, in the winters at 5:15 in the morning, it's freaking frigid, right? 40-degree water. To jump my ass in there and basically submerge myself for 3 minutes, I'm developing a mental fortitude. It's like nothing can stop me. My competition's not doing this. The CEO of F45 or whatever ain't doing this. Nope. So that is going to develop my mindset from a confidence perspective and a resourceful perspective to take on the next challenge.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I heard David Goggins say this on an interview. He says he armors himself first thing in the morning mentally, right, to deal with anything that's going to come to him the rest of the day. And he's got his morning routine. You have yours, I have mine. Interestingly enough, we both do the hardest things that we despise the most first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm factory installed to go work out in the gym and to like lift heavy weights. So I intentionally walk out the front door when I wake up and I go up a 2-mile hill and then trot down that 2-mile hill when it's cold. And then, at night I do the plunge and then hot tub and then go to bed. The last thing I want to do before nighttime going to bed is get in that plunge. Totally. But I know that if I start the day with something hard, end the day with something hard, I have armored myself, and whatever comes, and let's face it, as an entrepreneur, friends, hardship's going to come. I don't care how well structured your day is.
Shit is coming for you.
Shit is coming for you. But if you are so well armored and reinforced, you're good to go. You almost welcome that because you're like, now I just want to test my mental, emotional muscles that I've been building. Like, how strong are they? And you're like, oh shit, that was easy.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Gets me fired up, B. Hey, my friend, hopefully you love that short teaser of the recent episode on the Fitness CEO podcast. To check out the full episode, it will be dropping shortly. But in the meantime, there's some other episodes around here that you need to see.